Hello, I think we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We are very happy to be here again. Sorry, I'm not Stevan. Stevan is busy in a meeting which is not finished yet, but hopefully he will finish soon and join us immediately after. So we are again very happy to be here today or this evening together with our sister Silvia. Hello, Silvia.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Charles. Hello, Karen. Nice to have you with us today. And hello, everyone. I hope everyone is well. We're going to be talking about Kardec today, which is a very special subject. And I hope you all join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvia. Indeed, we are very happy to be the Karen today. So, hello, good evening, Karen. How are
Hello,
you?
good evening, Charles. Good evening, Silvia. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I'm fine and very happy that we have the opportunity to talk about Kardec this evening. It's actually a great honor and looking forward to exchange with you and learn more about him. So thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
thanks for inviting me.
Okay. Okay. Well, so I will shortly introduce the subject, and then we will enter in our exchanges and conversation. Should you have any comments, please just send it. We are here already greeting Elsa, which is not today with us because she's recovering from some illness, and also Gabriel is already with us. So welcome, Gabriel. So Allan Kardec, his true name was Hippolyte Léon Denis Rivail. He is born in Lyon, city of Lyon, in 3rd of October 1804. And he grew up not in the easiest conditions. His father disappeared when he was 3 years old. So he has been educated by his mother, his grandmother, and his uncle on the same family. Nevertheless, they managed to get him to study in the school of Heinrich Pestalozzi, Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi in Switzerland, which was one of the best school at that moment. Pestalozzi was following and improving the pedagogy taught by before him by Rousseau. And this gave to this young teenager a very good open mind because he was speaking several languages. He had the colleagues from his class were from Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Russia, whatever. Also different religions, Catholic, Jewish, evangelic, or even Orthodox. And after finishing the school with 18 years old, he went to Paris with his family, with his mother and his uncle at that time, around 1823. And that is when then he started writing books of the pedagogy of Pestalozzi, so a book for arithmetics. And he started also a career in the education. So he had first level schools and first and second level schools, and then also gymnasium schools. And this went until more or less 1840. And then some difficulties appeared. So his uncle, his mother died already in 1832. He was married with Amélie Boudet. We will talk more about Amélie Boudet, I think, next week or the week after. And from 1840, we don't know exactly the cause yet, but his uncle was apparently gambling a little bit too much, lost a lot of money, and ruined the family. So he had to give up of his institution in Paris, which was quite successful. And he had then to fight looking for other ways to survive, to earn the money necessary for the family. So he worked in insurance company, making probability calculations. He worked also with his friend Lachâtre, in a kind also of business. But nothing went very well. So, and from 1844 to 1850, Amélie started a pension for young ladies, which did not have too much education at that time. And this went until 1850. And from 1850, he started then other activities in order to earn the necessary money for his survival. So that's just a summary of who he was before Kardec. So quite successful in education, pedagogy, very well known in France. He participated to several scientific and social societies with a lot of people renowned in different areas of the knowledge at his time. But that's it. And 1848, it's a date which is very well known in US, because it's the year where started some strange phenomena in the house of the Fox family in Hydesville, close to Rochester, in New York State, in US. And that was really an event which triggered a lot of action, moves, and repercussion in the press and so on. People against, people in favor, a huge debate and polemics and whatever. Some scientists started studying the phenomenon, and the honest one recognized it was authentic, that they could not give an explanation. But how to say, this effect was spread around the world. And in France, a couple of years later, in 1850, started a new fashion, the fashion of the turning or dancing or talking tables. That was then a fashion in the salon where the people were inviting other persons and had to make something exotic to attract them, and so on. So it was more entertainment than really something serious. And it was in 1854 that Hippolyte Rivail heard for the first time talking about this phenomenon. At least maybe he heard before, but from that time he started paying more attention to it. First, it was a colleague of him talking, yes, the tables are moving. Yeah, why not? The table can be moving. We know the physics, effects of electricity, electromagnetism, and so on. So why not? And then the same came and said to him, not only the table are not only moving, but they are also answering to questions. And then Hippolyte said, this I do not believe. I will only believe if I see where the table has a brain or something. So he was just disbelieving. And a couple of times later, another person came to him, another friend of him, talking much more seriously about this. And he again continued skeptical. But that fellow told him, look, if you want, I invite you, you can come that day, that time, to assist yourself to the phenomenon. And he accepted, because his friend was more serious than the first one. So that was in 1855, where he saw this phenomenon. So he immediately came to the conclusion also that the phenomenon is authentic. He had the sense of observation from the pedagogy of Pestalozzi. And not only the phenomenon was authentic, but he also saw that, yes, the table is not only moving, but it is also giving answers, answering to questions. And the answers are quite wise and sometimes totally surprising and out of any preconception of any of the participants to the meeting where these phenomena were organized. So that he had the intuition, because at the end he reincarnated with a mission which was this one. Okay, time has come. I will now investigate this deeper and try to understand what happened, what is happening, and what is hiding behind these phenomena. Okay, so this is exactly where you have to be wise, because the people which are frivolous, for instance, are just driven by curiosity or by entertainment or something else, hoping some miracles or whatever. But he approached the things, the phenomenon, with the feet on the floor. So he told, yes, this is an intelligent effect. It must have an intelligent cause. And I will now investigate seriously to try to find out what this cause is. And this is how it started. So he participated to several meetings which were organized. At a given point in time, the people saw he was serious, so he managed to organize himself, to lead himself the meetings, asking questions, checking the questions and answer who came already, looking if it makes sense. And from all these works, which was the wise work he has done, 2 years later, in 18th of April, 1857, he published the first book, which is the Spirit's Book, with, at the first edition, 502 questions and answers. And when you read the Spirit's Book, you see that it is really embracing a complete philosophy, rational philosophy, without any inconsistencies, covering not only the physical principle or the principles like God, how the creation of the universe, but also the soul, the physical world, the spiritual world, and the interaction between the spiritual world and the physical world. And so it was the first step of the Spiritist philosophy. When a lot of people just went, see, and then went away, and no, he had the persistence to go and observe all these phenomena, study them with real scientific methods in order to draw all the conclusions out of it. So that's how it started. So I think I will stop here now and hand over to one of my colleagues, Karen or Silvia. Who wants to talk first? Karen, you told you had prepared something, so I suggest you start.
My time of preparation was especially long this evening. No, but I could listen to you talking about Kardec for hours and about his personality and the way he developed and prepared the Spiritist teachings for us, or put them in order. And what really struck me is the way he approached those new phenomena at the time. Having had a very good reputation already as an educator, and he, as you said, he looked at it in a very rational way. So saying, yeah, there is an intelligent effect, so it must have an intelligent cause. He didn't just say, I don't believe in it, so it doesn't exist. But he saw there is something happening that you cannot explain with anything that was known at the time. So he took the approach of, okay, let's investigate it on a scientific level. And he was humble enough to do that. He wasn't afraid of his reputation suffering from that. Because as he said, his life or his conditions weren't that of a rich man. So he had to kind of get his life organized, but he wasn't afraid to go forward, investigate, and take this approach that he had learned in his previous studies, also for a very new phenomena.
A few seconds. He was indeed a little bit concerned, because at that time he was working as in the accounting of a newspaper called L'Univers, which was Catholic, and he was also doing the same job for the Pelago bookshops, which was also Catholic. So he was really touching to a subject he felt it may give him some problems and some difficulties for the jobs he had at that moment. So that was the only concern he had. But nevertheless, as you told, he went straight forward and did it.
And yeah, it's even more impressive to me that he indeed did that. And moving on, and also one thing that you already mentioned, so he asked, the questions that he asked to the spirits was not only through one medium or one, at one special session that he said, that's just these are people that I trust. But he realized we have to take a broader approach scientifically and work with several mediums, so to build this impressive body of knowledge of the Spiritist teachings based on communications through numerous mediums and by spirits around the world and in very different places. And where at the time, if we remember, we did not have WhatsApp group where you could exchange and say, today we received a message on this and that topic, but mediums in different places received similar communications, not knowing that others had received them as well. So I think that's a very important approach also that Allan Kardec took to see we're trying to investigate something, but we're doing it really on a broad level. And as the topic of today is Allan Kardec, the wise man, I think that's a very wise approach as well, to think of all those details of not just focusing on one tiny group and saying this is our new philosophy, but taking also this more universal approach. And maybe I stop here and pass the word to Silvia. But yeah, it's just very, to me, it's very impressive, the approach he took from the very beginning.
Yes, thank you, Karen. Indeed, I mean, he was not only listening to one medium or in one group, he really had several groups in order to have a more universal approach and comparing one with the other. And also one of the first conclusion he was, it is not because a medium receives something from a spirit that it is absolute truth. Sometimes he has seen some communication of spirits which were absolutely nonsense. So he deduced immediately like that the spirits are like humans. You have some wise ones, but you have also some others which really you cannot trust at all. So that helped him also a lot not to fall in the big trap. Don't you think so, Silvia?
Yes, it's so interesting to be listening. I would be here listening. There's so much. I feel personally that, we talk about Kardec, we read about him a lot, but I think deep down we don't quite understand or can grasp the work that this man did. It's such a profound, so much knowledge. It's amazing that he created in 10 years. He did the 5 books, and he wrote a lot of other books and the Spiritist magazine. But it's interesting, as you were saying, in the beginning, his life, the very fact that he left France to go abroad as a boy, to go to a school like Pestalozzi had created. I think everything was already in the plan, because the education he had, as you pointed out, he met so many different people from many different religions, from different backgrounds, and I think all that, and he was an extremely intelligent boy, because he was already teaching his fellow students, when it was 13, 14, he had that ability. And he created the schools, and of course, all the things that he created, the books for facilitating how to learn the grammar in French, and so many of the books that he published, always thinking how to teach people, how to make it easier for them to understand. I mean, all the books that he had written, was all books that, before he started in the Spiritism, is all things that how make it easier for other people to learn, for the children to learn, to think for themselves. I mean, even now, I think our schools still don't have that. You have to learn certain things, but the way he created the books for the students, for the pupils in school, was for them to learn things and to learn to think for themselves. And I think that background was what helped him in creating, when he started finding out. And I thought as well that it's interesting that he did. Oh, how interesting! Because I can only imagine how the phenomena must have been, because people were having parties with their tables moving. It had become kind of almost like an entertainment. And the fact that, when he said no, tables can affect to everything. And I think from the very beginning, he was already critical in what he was seeing and learning. And I think the point that you made that was important, Charles, that not everything that comes from spirit is correct. So I think that from the very first instant, that Kardec always had a very logical, very methodical way of analyzing, and the fact that he created all the questions that, and distribute them to different people, different mediums, and compared all the answers to see which ones were correct, which ones, were with the other. So from the very, very beginning, he started a method of logic, of not allowing one to learn and to research enough not to be duped. And I think, now we who are blessed with the knowledge that he was able to put together and create for us, and his legacy, it's forever. I mean, the Spirit's book, I find it's every time you open it, you've read this many, many times, but every time I look, oh my God, this is new. I can't remember that. I don't remember I read that before. Then I go to my book and I have notes made, because every time you learn something new, isn't it? It's such an incredible piece of learning and research that, and also I feel that it gives you that impetus to go and learn more, to research something else. There is never end to that. The more you learn, the less you know, so you have to learn more and more and more. And I find it very interesting, and we have Kardec to thank for that, for the work that he put in to create, to bring us the book, and with analysis and making sure that everything was correct and done properly. I think it's forever, because of the Spirit's book. It has knowledge that we have not known. We don't know yet. Even now, even our science is progressing and everything is still learning. And I find as well that there are many questions in the Spirit's book, especially when he talks about the universe and, God. I mean, the whole thing about God being an intelligence, it was so challenging for everything that was before, wasn't it? It challenges your knowledge. And sometimes I meet people who still have trouble with that. They cannot conceive of God being an intelligence. They always think that God has to be the image of man and that kind of thing. So we have to be so grateful for Kardec.
Indeed. And I think, on one side, he touched two questions which were reserved of the religions. The soul, what's happening with the souls after dying, and all these topics were chasse gardée, as we say in French, exclusive. The religions had their dogmas, their teachings, and they did not see very, how to say, satisfactorily this new approach that Kardec brought to touch these subjects, but in another way, not through dogmas, not through things you have to believe it because it's written here or there, or because the Pope has said it or whatever. No, here you see there is an explanation behind. Here it is like this for this and that reason. So a totally different approach, going away from the blind phase and entering to the reasoned phase. You believe in something after you have understood it. That was always his approach. And on the other hand, he had also the scientific people against him, because they say he's not a scientist, these subjects are not relevant for science, the soul does not exist, God is metaphysics, so it's also not scope of science. So he's claiming studying scientifically this subject. So he had both religions and science against him. So another aspect of the wise man who was Kardec, he did not try to satisfy one or the other or to reconcile them. It was mission impossible. You see, even today, 170 years later, there is still science fighting against religions and vice versa. But what he did, he took the best out of the religion, which is the moral laws and the teachings, leaving apart all the dogmas, the hierarchical the sacerdotal hierarchies and all these things. He also took from the best out of science, which was the methodology, the positive methodology at that time of positivism with Auguste Comte, and just brought both together to study the subject of the soul using the best knowledge of the scientific methodologies that was available at that time. And so it's a revolutionary approach that still today is not understood, because as a spiritist today we go to a priest, he will say, oh, it's the devil, don't stop it immediately whatsoever. And you go to a scientist, he will laugh very nicely to say, oh, my poor guy, these subjects are not for science. This is everyone is free to believe in whatever he wants, but this has nothing to do with science. So this approach of Kardec was really revolutionary. Take the best of the one, the best of the other, put them together in something new, which he called Spiritism. And still today, this is not properly understood. And I wanted to mention also quickly, there is a professor of epistemology, so it's a philosophy of science, from the Federal University of Campinas in São Paulo, Brazil. And he made an investigation of the methodology Kardec used. And he determined that Kardec anticipated a lot some methodological principles who were only defined and codified more precisely in the 20th century through Imre Lakatos, through Karl Popper, or even through Thomas Kuhn already in the 60s, about the theory of scientific revolutions and so on. So all what Kardec did was anticipating all these methodologies that came only later. And when he compared the methodology used by Kardec, it's really fulfilling, even more than science itself, a lot of time. Because as I think Karen told it, I don't believe it, so it does not exist. This is what we heard so many times from scientists, but it's an absolute anti-scientific statement. The scientist should not discard something a priori without investigating. He needs to look to the natural phenomenon as they are without having preconceived idea. And this is exactly what Kardec did 170 years ago, and that still today, of course, not today, I must admit, 21st century, the things are changing slowly but surely. You have, for instance, the manifesto for a post-materialist science, where you had hundreds of scientists in the world signing a statement with some principles that there are a lot of phenomena that go in the way of showing that the human being is not only a physical body, that the conscience is not a produce of the brain, that is even the opposite. The brain is only transmitting the conscience, and that there is another reality in the human being and in the living being, which is the soul and the spirit in the spiritual realm. So this is starting now, slowly but surely, getting force. Yet the mainstream science stays in a dogmatic, that's the correct word, materialist paradigm. They say only matter exists. There is nothing out of matter in the universe, but they do not demonstrate it. It's just a dogma, a statement, an hypothesis that they take for their investigations, but with so many evidences showing that this is not true, that this paradigm is not complete. So Kardec was, 170 years ago doing what we just explained shortly, and still today, so he was one or two or maybe even 3 centuries above a front runner, running in front of the time, because it will still take sometimes until this will be recognized. So, of course, he wrote the Spirit's book. Another characteristic of the Spirit's book was he made the questions, but the answers came from the spirits. So it's not his personal ideas coming again universally through several mediums, several groups, and even through several countries in the second edition. So when he gets some feedback on the first one. And then he wrote the medium's book, which is how does mediumship works, what is working, what is not working, what care we should take, and so on. What are the different type of mediums, which is still today the best book, the most complete self-supporting book on this subject. He wrote also, as B wrote us in the chat, started with the Gospel according to Spiritism. So he took from the Gospel the moral teaching of Jesus, left aside all the polemic subjects, again, through the same approach, showing that the moral teachings given by Jesus, do unto the other what you would like the other to do unto you, or love your neighbor as yourself, and so on. All these big principles are totally consistent with the moral principle taught by the spirits, which is remarkable, and which are also consistent in all the religions worldwide, which is not, which are not an exclusivity neither from Spiritism nor from Christianity. Then he wrote Heaven and Hell, which is also a very interesting book, showing what makes sense and what does not make sense in all these questions of evil, angel, heaven, hell, and so on. With a lot of communications of spirit after this, showing what the people became as spirits depending on what they did during their life. And the fifth book he wrote was the Genesis, which was also complementing a lot of principles about God, about the transition period which we are passing right now, amongst many other subjects. So he did all this in 14 years. So that's also one sign of a wise man, because when you look all the pages he wrote, and of course with the help of spirits, but I would be totally incapable to do something like that. And principally revolutionary like this, quantum jump, how do we say it? A disruption in the existing concepts that are still today not understood. And he had this vision very crystal clear, as we can see it in these books. What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's impressive. I mean, who of us who, let's say, who spent takes up those 13 or 14 years studying Spiritism, who can say we fully understood everything that Allan Kardec wrote or have studied everything he wrote? I have not. So it's really impressive how, as you also said it, Silvia, we probably are far from understanding how revolutionary and big this work is. And as you talked about the scientific approach, Charles, and also what scientists said to what Allan Kardec had published, I also found it very interesting in the book, What is Spiritism? Allan Kardec prepared also not only he explained the basic principles, but he started also with some dialogue. So where he said what questions could be asked on certain aspects by certain people on the Spiritist teachings. And one dialogue exactly that I had a look on before we started was on the dialogue on the opposition of science towards the Spiritist teachings. So that was very interesting because he was having this dialogue with someone who brought all the aspects. So yeah, all the well-known scientists are against what you're publishing, and then exactly he shows that. So first of all, it's not all the well-known scientists who have been against, but some learned people have been open to it. But also, just summarizing it briefly, he said even if there was a committee of scientists that are being recognized in society, and even if they would say yes, the Spiritist teachings are serious and we can believe in it, people would still not believe in it because we cannot impose it on them. Everybody has to understand for themselves. We have to study for ourselves and understand those teachings, and then feel this makes sense for me and build my faith on it, and then I can believe because I have understood. And this is his reply. So even if scientists would state this is the new truth, it would still not be the new faith that everybody would have because you cannot impose it. So this also shows his how wise he was, and continues to be, knowing us very well and offering us all this knowledge to everybody who is interested in it can build their unshakable faith on those reasoned teachings. And then also, what I also found impressive is that he explains and how important it was to make it accessible for everybody. Everybody may perhaps not be in a position to understand all the texts that have been written, or not even have the time, but the basic principles. And also when he wrote the introduction to the Gospel according to Spiritism, he said these teachings are valid for everybody, and they show us which way morally we can approach and how to get there. So to find our moral path, and this is valid for everybody. So we don't need anybody who has to have the authority to teach us, but we can study for ourselves. So this is also something very important and revolutionary, I think.
Exactly. The Spiritist is body of knowledge, is teaching, is not imposing anything. Everyone stays free to believe in it or not to believe in it, even if after understanding, So it's really one of the principles of the Spiritist teaching is the free will. So the Spiritist philosophy has to be consistent with this basic principle of the free will of the human being. Don't you think so, Silvia?
Absolutely. I must say personally, I'm completely fascinated by the Spirit's book, because what he dealt with, I remember, because I always ask questions. I used to have friends, when we were teenagers. Oh, does God exist? Why are we here? What are we doing? We would spend hours. Sometimes we used to meet together and talk about this, God exists. Why am I here? Why am I alive? Where do I go when I die? And all that kind of thing. I mean, we're a completely crazy group, but the first time that I opened the Spirit's book and I started to look at the contents, I almost cried, because everything I ever asked was there, was answering, and I think the thing, you look at this book and it's completely scientific. The way it's written, the questions that were asked are so clear and objective. And the answers, well, from the spirits are very objective. And, sometimes it's just 3 words, or very, very clear, no confusion or trying to re-explain. And hi, Stevan,
Hey,
and everything. But I think when, we're talking about science, Charles, I think this book is still far ahead of the science that we have now. When you think about when Kardec asked, is there void in a space? And the answer was this person, no, there is a kind of fluid that you cannot perceive. He was already telling us about, the cosmic fluid and all that, which only now is beginning to learn about dark energy, dark matter, and only 4 or 5% of the universe really is actually material. Everything else is in a different level, And actually, there is a question as well that he explains that you had a primitive fluid, a secondary fluid, and everything that's matter comes from the secondary fluid. Even now, I think we have some difficulty in understanding that, but 170 years ago must be completely beyond most people's understanding, isn't it? So I think the way he puts, he brings science and religion in a way that they are not in conflict with each other, but they complement each other. And I find as well how when he explained what makes you alive, one of the questions, what is life? And this person will explain to you what makes you alive, what gives matter life. That's something is still, we find difficult to understand. And also, when he talks about, I'm just looking, going through some of the pages, the biblical account of creation, how they explain the whole thing of the Bible, without any conflict, without being oh no, the Bible is all wrong, and this what we know is right, which science seems to do now. But he explains it. It makes sense. You're not, oh no, this is horrible, this is religion, you're ignorant if you believe this. No, he explains it in a clear, logical way. And you come to your own conclusions. I think Karen said that, and you did as well, Charles. We come to our own conclusions. We read this and we understand. And the way the book as well, the way he put the book, and the separation of the different things, the moral laws and the universe, how it is created, how we live in a world, why we're here, what happens after we die, and everything. So it's so complete in the understanding of human existence in the material world and also in the spiritual world. And I think that was Kardec talent and gift, to really put those things together, having one complete the other, without any, no, religion is rubbish, science is good, oh no, science is rubbish. No, he brings them together. One complements the other. There is no conflict. And I think it's one of the most wonderful things that the Spirit books brings to us, because there is a knowledge there that challenges us all the time, our own points of view. And you don't need, I remember once actually hearing a conversation between 2 people that I knew and I loved very much, very scientific people. And they were talking about Spiritism, because they had known about it. And they were saying to that, I can't understand. I mean, these people are scientists. They're talking about some of the doctors from army and everything, and how these people are scientists, hardcore scientists, and still they believe in spiritism, and they bring it together in some way. And I always found fascinating when I heard this story, the two of them talking, because they were learning about spiritism and said there is no conflict in what science teaches and what spiritism is teaching us. Because basically, what people call paranormal and, all the thing, oh, this is outside of the normal, it's not, we'll have to do, is not. We learn that there are laws, there are basic nature, laws of nature that there are, and some of them we still don't know because it's still in the process of learning. And I think that's what the book does. And that's the work, I think, very much the work of Kardec in bringing this to our knowledge, to make us, even though you're not a scientist, you are able to understand it. And I find that was his gift. I mean, we'd never be able to thank him enough. I always say the only thing that, we can at least try to do is to try to live accordance, in accordance to what the book brings us and the knowledge that he gave us. I mean, he was so exceptional. He was an exceptional human being, absolutely one of the greatest. And one day he'll be recognized by all.
It may take some time, but he will.
But I mean, his humility, because as you were saying in the beginning, Charles, he had a lot of problems, didn't he? Yeah. And with people he knew, the schools he taught, wasn't it, Karen? He did have lots of problems. And yet he was able to find within himself, the strength to continue. And I think, sort of thinking about this, when they had the art fair in Barcelona, in which the books were burned, and was for his own money, and he wasn't a rich man, he didn't have that. No. But I think if that bishop knew what he was doing, he would have never burned the books, because everybody there said, oh my God, what kind of books are there they want to burn? And was the last act of faith in 500 years or something since the Inquisition started. They got the Spirit's book in the index, which I find it fascinating, because actually that was a way of opening up, wasn't it?
Exactly. So the effect was opposite. It made an advertisement of the books. And that is one of the key reason for a big development of Spiritism in these early years in Spain. And of course, with science on one side, religion was powerful during centuries, abusing Inquisition, whatever you told, Silvia, and much more. They burned Joan of Arc, and amongst others.
Giordano
and then
Bruno.
Came science and said,
don't forget they burned Giordano Bruno.
And Galileo was almost, he had to, et per si mueve. Bon, so we just, we went from one extreme, the religious domination, to the materialist domination. And again, Kardec took, okay, there is good things in both, and did something new, which is still not today properly understood. And Stevan, he wrote, amongst others, Kardec wrote, Spiritism does not say, believe first, and you may understand later if you can. It rather says, understand first, and you may believe later on, if you want so. So we are going from heteronomy to autonomy. Don't you think so, Stevan?
Oh yeah. Well, and this is part of our talk, because we will discuss the environment Kardec had. What's is good for us or not for the development of Spiritism, but these autonomies and autonomies is so important, and nobody pay attention to it. So we need we need, and just when you start to read Kardec, understand between the lines. I have one day. Divaldo was here in Ireland, and he was giving a speech. Probably you were here, Karen, that time. And he said at the beginning, when he was starting to read the Spirit's book, like he read the book, and Joanna show up to him and say, "Oh, read again, read again." He finished to read again. Finish read again, read again. And I don't know, about the to 10th time he was reading it, then he stopped it and really read what is what's make the connections, why this question here connects with that question, how they are well formulated, how they complement each other, and why they have this in this part of the book, why they have in that part of the book. So this is what I need to do. Most of us just read the Spirit's book once a day, once in entire life, and oh, I read already. No. So, and this will give us so much background for the heteronomy that clearly you see, wow, this is happening here. Why Kardec? Kardec was, I don't know, he was in 1857 when he launched it, but he probably would, his mind was in, I don't know, 3000 or whatever.
Yeah. We are running we are running behind, trying to
Yes,
back a
because
little bit.
it's still valid, like.
Mm.
And we have a comment here from B. Say cosmic fluid and dark matter both serve as a fundamental scaffolding for the
Yes.
universe. One from a spiritist metaphysical perspective, and the other from scientific material perspective.
Exactly. And
Well,
that's
I think
exactly,
we have a
I mean,
metaphysical, because I think that the laws that they talk in a Spirit's book, and of course at the time they could not explain, and would be over 150 years before this would be talked about and discovered. And even science, they still are not really aware of what it is. And the research they were doing on dark energy and dark matter, the group of people were actually doing it, they stopped because they said within the paradigm of materialism, they cannot go forward. It has to have a completely new science to be able to understand that. So I think, the laws of scientific laws, the laws of nature, that as we progress and as we evolve as a spirit, we will learn more and more. I don't think there is anything that it's beyond our understanding. It will come to us when we're ready to learn it, isn't it? Because unfortunately, we still, mankind is still very backward morally, and we tend to use discoveries and new science to create a destruction rather than create things, better life for people. So it will take some time for us to achieve that. But this book already teaches us, almost everything we need to learn, and will take us, many lifetimes to really be able to grasp everything that's in this. And, like Stevan says, Kardec, I mean, he was beyond the science of his time, our time, and, long beyond what is going to, it'll take quite some time for us to be able to really grasp that. But one of the things about the study they were doing, that dark energy, they say, because we don't perceive, but it's actually pure light. It's pure light. So that's something that for us
and
is
light
still
normally we should perceive, isn't it? So it's complex.
exactly. But I mean, white light we almost can't see because blinds you. But we will eventually.
So, but what I wanted to add is, I mean, in the Spiritist body of knowledge, we have a lot of strong principles about matter, about soul, about what happens after death, and so on. That helps us to take a little bit distance for seeing what's happening nowadays. We see the things from a kind of a different perspective. We understand the root causes of what's happening today, which is exactly, coming from selfishness, pride, materialist paradigm, doing everything for money, willing to impose the point of view for governing the world whatsoever. So it's quite difficult to resist in such a complex environment we have in the world, principally these last weeks even. But when we can see that from a little bit more distance and understand better what's happening, we have a lot of reasons, a lot of arguments for staying optimistic, understanding the root cause of this crisis, understanding how it will change. All these crises are coming from this materialist paradigm that considering the human being as like a machine, even without free will. And it's not like that. And that's why our society is in crisis like now. But after the crisis, better, I think the conscience will awake and better time will come. You have a lot of people thinking about suicide, isn't it, Karen? And we have huge arguments in the Spiritist body of knowledge to prevent that in the best way we can. What do you think, Karen?
Absolutely, yeah, that's one of the big achievements that the Spiritist philosophy brings us, to show us that life continues, to explain us why we are suffering at the stage where we are in now, but also to understand that, first of all, the suffering will not last forever, that there's a reason for it, for a reason that needs to teach us something, but also to know we are not alone, neither here on the material level, but also learning that there are spirits like our guardian angels, mentors that help us, and just if we really understand those teachings, that really helps us to get the strength that we need to overcome the obstacles that we face. And there's this beautiful story that Allan Kardec once, when he was a little bit discouraged about how things, how the spreading of the Spiritist teachings did not go on that easily, and he was a little bit discouraged, as I understand, to continue his work. It was then when he received a little package that contained the Spirit's book when he opened it, and a little piece of paper thanking him for this book by having written it, or someone who wrote to him that this book has saved his life at a moment where he actually had thought about suicide. So this, and I think if more people get a chance to study those teachings, this will prevent suicide, indeed.
I think that was a very good point, isn't it? That, we have proof of people actually read the book and it saved their lives, and they were able to write to Kardec and say, it saved their life. And now I'm sure that there's a lot of people who, I myself, I feel that it changed my life. Learning about this book, it has changed my life, the direction that my life was taking. And I think, in a way, we are all being touched by that, all of us. So I think if you out there that are listening to us today, joining, or will know about it afterwards, if you buy it, read it. You can get it in Amazon, in several languages. I suggest each and everyone to. Sorry?
You can get it for free download in PDF.
Exactly, yes, and you can get for free as well.
Yeah, you can go to Kardecpedia. Kardecpedia does have this for free and in many languages. It translates in many languages as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I think, don't believe us. Go and search it
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah.
That's the basic teachings of the spirits. Don't believe anything that's said. Go and search for yourself.
That's the principle from Kardec. Reason of faith.
Yeah.
So, Stevan, I think we are approaching to the end of time.
Yes.
Yeah, let me share my screen here. Okay, so next week we will cover Kardec and Amélie. We will see how important Amélie was for the Spiritist movement as well. It's not just Kardec. Kardec was the front person, but we need to talk about the backstage as well. A lot of people were in backstage, and one of those people was Amélie. So next week, sorry,
his wife.
Yeah, which was his wife. Yeah. Okay, so next week, 12th of March at 9 p.m. UK time. Also, in April, our friend Roberto Watanabe will give his talk about Ernesto Bozano. We invite everyone to go to Finland on 7 and 8 of June. We will have a special meeting there, especially for group works, experiences, sharing, discussions. Karen gonna be there, Mao gonna be there, Char's gonna be there, Silvia, I wish she's gonna be there, And 1 second, because my screen disappeared here. Okay, and please, if you have any questions, reach out to Pekka. His email is on the screen. He'll give you more details about the program and how to reach out there. So also in September, we will have the International Congress about the Joana de Angelis. So many guests.
It's going to be wonderful. Everybody should go to this because it's going to be really, really good. Yeah. In England, in a wonderful place in Hertfordshire. So, try to join us.
So also now in March, at the end of the March, we will have the first European Spiritist Congress in Switzerland. It's on 29th and 3rd of March. This event will be in Portuguese, but they will translate it into 16 languages using artificial intelligence. So more details, go to festswiss.org and you get to know more about it. If you want to be on top of the newsletters about Spiritism, our dear friend Dan Assisi, he runs this site Spiritist Institute. So go to Spiritist Radar and enter our email, and we will get news and insights about the Spiritism. Also, this Friday, we will have the Psych Spirituality and Psychiatric Annual Conference. It's in London, one day, and Dr. Alexandre Moreira, he's gonna be there. He's the one who help us to go more to Deuteronomy than anything else. So, Charles, you work close with Alexandre, so you know more him. So perhaps you can say.
Yeah, he's really an outstanding, worldwide known scientist. And the latest study, which will be published soon, is they made a genetic analysis between people who are medium and people who are not medium, randomly, double-blind, whatever rigorous protocol. and they found out some interesting results. So he may talk about these latest studies they made.
Good, good. And also weekly online meetings about the youth group. So it's every Thursday from 6:45 to 7:45. If you have a your young one wants to be there, please pass along the message. And that's it from us. So I want to say thank you, Charles. Thank you, Silvia. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for being here with us. I know it's late for you, Karen, in Germany.
It's been wonderful talking to you, and especially listening to you all on such a very special personality topic.
Thank our Elsa, which is in background. So thank you everyone who joined us. B, Marco Davis. Let me see who more interact with us. Abdamed, Vialia, Gabriel Inácio, NGH. So a lot of people with us today. Thank you so much. And apology for being late. Thank you, Charles, for conducting the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you
I'll
all.
see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.